Well,
Love you, Tia.
welcome everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us for the Big Texas Author Talk featuring Anel Flores and moderated by Jackie Cuevas. I'm Florinda Flores Brown, and I'm the Director of Programs at Gemini Inc. And assisting me this evening is Cloud Cardona, our marketing coordinator. And, we are here representing Gemini Inc., where our mission is to teach the craft of writing to people of all skill levels so they can bring their stories to life. And one of the ways in which we help bring stories to life is by featuring the work of incredible authors, which is what we're doing this evening. And before we kick off, I would like to thank our partner Writing Workshops, formerly known as Writing Workshops Dallas. They have been partnering with us for this event since the pandemic. And I also want to thank our sponsors, sponsor National Endowment for the Arts for funding this. And just some quick housekeeping. We do ask that you keep yourself muted. And we also ask that as you listen to the conversation, please feel free to type any questions that you have in the chat, and we will definitely take a moment. Cloud will be monitoring that chat, and we'll take a moment to look at those questions during our Q&A. And without further ado, I'm going to take a moment to introduce the amazing folks we have with us tonight. So we're honored to feature Anel and Jackie. And let me pull up Anel's bio. So Anel I. Flores is a trans Latina Latinx writer, artist, and activist whose work explores LGBTQIA plus experiences, Latina, Latinx literature, and social issues. Anel's literary contributions have been featured in numerous publications, including Switchgrass Review and Sinister Wisdom. Their plays have been produced on stage, and their visual art has been exhibited in galleries worldwide. Anel's upcoming novel, Curtains of Rain, or Cortinas de Lluvia, is scheduled for release May 2025 by Jaded Ibis Press. And then our moderator this evening is Dr. Jackie Cuevas, who is an author of Post-Borderlandia, Chicana Literature and Gender Variant Critique, Rutgers University Press 2018, and the poetry chapbook Otherhood USA, Tanto Tinto Press 2000. Cuevas teaches at UT Austin and is a member of the Macondo Writers Workshop. And with that, I will hand it over to Jackie and Anel. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Florinda and Cloud, for organizing, and everybody at Gemini Inc. I've always loved Gemini Inc. You all put on such wonderful programming and bring in great authors, and I've been to several of your events online and in person, and so I'm excited to be behind the scenes with you all taking part in the Gemini Inc. event. And so thank you for inviting me, and I'm especially excited to be talking to Anel Flores today. I know you gave a bio, but I do want to do a little bit of an extended bio to give people a context for the various kinds of ways that Flores works in the world. And I think it might help kind of situate our conversation today. So you mentioned some of the places that Anel's work has been published, and so I won't go over that, but I will say that over several decades of their career, their work has manifested as poetry, as paintings, which I have one here on display behind me, graphic memoir, and now fiction that we'll be talking about today. So Flores has received numerous awards and fellowships. Some of the most recent include the Mellon Democratizing Racial Justice Artist in Residence Award. They also have received the Radical Imagination Catalyst for Change Award and the UTSA Women's Advocate of the Year Award. And they've held several writing fellowships across the US and in Spain. And so they're becoming moving internationally with their work these days. They have an MFA in creative writing, and their first book, Empanada, received a Lambda Literary Award nomination, and the play has been regularly produced across the US at various venues. And they've also co-founded several community and arts organizations, either founded or co-founded, and been involved in lots of things such as the San Antonio Mayor's LGBTQIA Task Force and the Macondo Writers Workshop. And so just to give you a kind of context, also decades of teaching experience and activism. And I've known Anel Flores' work for a really long time. We have been in the Macondo Writers Workshop and various kinds of groups together, and we've collaborated together. And so I've had the pleasure of seeing the evolution of Anel's work in all of these different genres. And so I'm really excited to be talking about your fiction today, Anel. And so, with that in mind, I don't want to give too much away about the novel you are going to share with us, but I will say that I'm really excited about the combination of the different kinds of themes being set in San Antonio and South Texas, the movement, thinking about different areas of South Texas and being near the border or the borderlands, and thinking about um, this contemporary story of coming of age and the various struggles that the characters face. And so, do you want to go ahead and tell us just a little bit about it and read a little bit, and then we can go from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Gemini Inc., everyone this evening for being here. It is a great pleasure to be here with such beautiful folks, amazing writers I see out there that I know so well, and faces I don't know. But yeah, so I'm really excited about Curtains of Rain. I'm excited about the novel. It's a lifetime in the making. Like I know many works are for artists and writers. We are kind of writing the books in our minds for years and years and years with these great ideas. And so Curtains of Rain came about because one, I was stunned to find out many years ago that my mother was um, part of something that happened in Mission, Texas, in the 50s to the 80s, and that was the Hayes Salmons factory, environmental racism, pollution into the Mission, Texas. And when I discovered that my mom was part of this case, this landmark case where they were suing Hayes Salmons, which was now we would know as Monsanto, I thought this story has to be told. And I also believe in fictions and I believe in poetry. And I believe how fictions and poetry tell truths that sometimes we don't want to hear, or sometimes they're too hard to listen to. And so I knew that that had to be the backdrop to something. And years continued after I wrote Empanada. And the story of Solitaria came about, and Solitaria is the young protagonist. Solitaria is forced out of South Texas after being outed and comes to San Antonio. And all y'all are going to say, "Oh my God, it's your story," but it's not. I'm the writer, just like to remind people that all the time. Um, but that's all I'm going to tell you right now, because the rest it's on the website, but I am going to share a little bit. And and more than anything, at the very, I'm going to share the first couple pages of the book. And it starts off where we introduce one of the many settings of the books, but one of the most important spaces is in the pulga, in the flea market, a home away from home for many of the people that are in Curtains of Rain. All the characters they're all like trailblazers and business owners and hustling and selling out of their trunks like many of our families do, or out of their puestos. They're at fairs and markets. And so this first scene is at the Pulga, where you will meet Sol for the first time as a young girl, and you'll get a glimpse of her inner child. Um, and then we'll move into some later years. This is called Rainbow Eraser. The people at the Pulga came because it was the place they would be seen by everyone, and the place to shop for last-minute needs. Vendors sold their wares and skills for money to send to their families in other countries, mostly south to Mexico and Central America, but also overseas to Vietnam, India, and Africa. There was even a Western Union puesto with a line out the door morning, noon, and night. Solitaria's parents brought her to the Pulga because her sister Lucia was homesick and they needed a hand at work, even if it was a small hand. All the jewelry was unpacked, tables were set up, and Chon and Flora had finished filling the display cases with a puzzle of black velvet trays, complementing a potpourri of chunky rings, rope chains, monogram bracelets, earrings from pill-sized studs to palm-sized hoops, and things in solid gold you just never knew people wanted, like life-size scorpions or a weeping face of Jesus chiseled from a single chunk. It was just before the church crowd started shopping and the puestos weren't officially open yet. Chon disappeared through the back halls of the pulga, giving Flora and Solitaria some space before their first customers arrived. Mija, stay here while I go check in with your tío Fito, Flora said, running towards Fito's puesto. He pranced towards her, both friends meeting in the middle of the aisle with smiles from ear to ear and their hands clenched together in front of their panzas. Are they coming from church or are they coming in last night's clothes? Fito whispered through giggles in Flora's ear. She leaned into his shoulder pad, giggling just the same. Or do they need to go to confession from last night? Ay, Flora, qué mala eres, exclaimed Fito, but I love it. They threw their heads back and forth, Fito wrapping his flying arms around his friend, Flora. Flora swayed to the mix of songs being played from each puesto's personal boombox. Solitaria watched her mommy and Tío Fito's bodies vibrate from their hiding place in the broom closet behind their puesto. She wanted to go over there, too, but feared Chon's return. If she didn't behave, he'd never bring her back. Fito, you better get to the salon before Chon gets back, said Flora. Lleva esto. Fito held a little bottle of pink water in the palm of his hand. If he comes back, todo apestoso from his cigarettes, spray this agua de rosas on him, y ojalá que se mejore. Las rosas are milagrosas. He smiled shyly and winked his right eye. You want my husband to smell like a viejita? Como Nuestra Señora? Sí, llévatelo. Anything better than those pinches cigarros, Flora waved her long mauve fingernails in front of her face. Buchi. Now you're learning, mujer. Solita? La solitaria? Flora, she's still over there, escondida in the broom closet. Solitaria and Flora spotted Chon walking back through the back delivery door at the same time. Their smiles flattened, and Flora's face turned to stone. Fito's back was turned, and he slid his black patent leather loafers across the cement floor, inconspicuously, back to the salon. Chon's hands were stuffed in his pockets, and his hair was still wet from his morning shower. With every step he took in his clunky brown boots towards their puesto, his body grew larger, harder. Solitaria pushed away from the open crack in the door with the toes of her bulky white tennis shoes. Sweet purple fabuloso detergent filled her nose, and the sweat soaked the curly hairs poking out from the sides of her head. She wiped the sweat with the back of her hand and dried it on her pant leg. They were hand-me-downs from Lucia, extra soft from the many years of running and skidding and sliding, and old enough so that her papi wouldn't get the belt if he found Solitaria on the floor in her nice clothes. They were tight around her belly, and because the metal snap dug into her panza, Solitaria left them unbuttoned and stretched her Care Bear t-shirt over her waistband. This way, she didn't have to gasp for air. Except for the cucaracha turned upside down under the broom, Solitaria had the closet entirely to herself. Among the aerosol cans and buckets, she carved out a few inches on a shelf to hold the few toys she carried in her pockets. A sweet, smelly rainbow eraser Officer Sandra gave her, the magic fortune teller fish she got for a quarter the last time she was here, her lucky marble, and the butterscotch candy Carlota Grande had sneaked her when she walked by. Where's Solitaria? John shook his head in disapproval, but continued arranging the jewelry. ¿Quién sabe? Flora tried to motion to Sol to come out, but she was too distracted. Te dije que no debería venir. Sol felt safe, blocked from the clicks, beeps, and call-outs of vendors, the overhead music, the arresting hum of the oscillating fans from every different direction, and Chon's constant negativity and favor-asking. Go get me a cigarette from your tío Fito. Take this bag of junk your mommy packed over to Carlota and see if she'll give us something for it. Solitaria, go get La Sandra and tell her there are some bozos getting too close to the counter. Working at the pulga was trabajo duro, her papi always said, but Solitaria didn't believe him. She thought work must be fun, since all the grown-ups worked days, nights, weekends, and weekdays, even after coming home from more work. There's always work to do, her mommy would say. In her secret corner at the pulga, Solitaria found a place to make work fun. Hello, little rainbow eraser, she whispered, grabbing the striped half moon between her index finger and thumb. You're so pretty. Sol stood the rainbow eraser up on its two legs. It jiggled at first, but finally went still up against the wall. Sandra said rainbows mean love, and I love love, little rainbow. She replaced her butterscotch candy in front of the rainbow eraser. And you, little butterscotch son, go right here in the foot of the rainbow until I eat you. And that's the first section. That's first couple little excerpt at the very beginning.
Thank you. Thank you. And I know you're going to read a few more sections. I just want to say so far I'm really excited to see the setting. Like I feel like the pulga, the flea market, that whole experience, like that might be common for a lot of us to either be at or to work at. It's a whole kind of microcosm, and so I'm fascinated by the setting and the characters already, and so I'm really appreciating that. I want to ask a quick question, thinking to head to our kind of craft conversation about thinking about your decision to situate this as a kind of um, coming of age story, or at least kind of starting there, because I know later there are lots of kinds of big events that happen. And so sometimes people might kind of use the kind of younger ages to kind of flashback to. But do you want to talk a little bit? And if not, you can just continue reading. But I'm just wondering, I'm curious about your decision to kind of start with these younger moments.
Yeah, I think that I believe that there is a child in all of us. And I also believe that, there is a child in all of us. And I believe that child is like, that's where you first kind of learn about like the sweetness of love, the sweetness of desire, things that before anyone can tell you what love is about, you're just in love. You're in love with lollipops, you're in love with rain, you're in love with socks, you're in love with your jeans, you're in love with everything, and so I feel like although this book is not like the larger part of this book is not about young Sol, it's just that I want you to know her heart. And I want you to also kind of know what is surrounding her at the moment. And that she also is influenced by, this gay salon owner in the Pulga that's across the way. That's her mom's best friend. And you'll learn more about Fito, and he's going to be a major character in the book. So I wanted to start there because I think we also, as young people, we don't even know we're looking at queerness yet. But you're seeing joy, you're seeing relationships. So it was very important to include that because the book overall is very much about queer family and how we create queer family.
Great, thank you. Read some more, please.
Right. Yeah. All right, this next section, a couple of pages, we're now gonna, like I said, we're fast forwarding. So now she's a teen. And she's at this place in her life, Solitaria now, where she's in high school. She now has had a friend over to study. And this is the next morning. This evening is going to be that first evening that she has her first experience beyond flirting, beyond just admiring, beyond friendly love notes. And I'm not going to read that part. You have to get the book for that one, but I'm going to read the next morning. And so you'll get to hear just a little taste of that next morning. So let me open that up. There. All right, here we go. It wasn't clear to Solitaria whether or not she slept at all that night. If she drifted even near a dream, she didn't know, because every moment with Paloma felt like floating. Her body was more awake than ever, every inch of it. Outside her bedroom window, she stared at her salty, sweet hometown of Mission, Texas. Its pastel colors felt so small and looked like they could fit on a postcard. It was 6:22 a.m., according to her white cube alarm clock. Crowns of Mexican fan palm trees waved at the streets over Tia Chita's roof across the way. The palmas were the only things taller than Our Lady of Guadalupe Church and louder than Solitaria's heartbeat, whipping against her chest. Their unruly, dense fronds flung about in the hard wind from the South Padre Island coast and the Golfo de Mexico. The gallo call was extra melodic today, and the smell of burning leña from the nearby ranchos teased a hunger for more love in Sol's stomach. On the east side of her room, facing the coast, the huge blue cloudless sky framed a giant industrial fan attached to an abandoned warehouse. The constant spin of the fan, driven from the force of wind blowing through the blasted windows, left open after Hurricane Caroline, sang a high-pitched hum that blended with the songs of the winged orchestra del Valle. Solitaria had no idea that day would be one her small town would whisper about for years to come. Behind cupped hands in church pews, between the buckets of armored lard and Azteca Maseca corn flour at the grocery store, over and through chain link fences with twin steel figures of dogs framing the gates, into off-white telephone handsets holding onto spiral cords attached to kitchen walls. Sol filled her lungs from the warm breath of Paloma kissing her lips, and for the first time felt heat as striking as the sun. She replayed the night again. She couldn't help it. For each tug at her friend's lip, warm air had reached down deeper into her stomach, filling each of her hips. The warmth had swelled inside of her so fast that the fiery friction had made cold between her legs, echoing after each kiss. That's that next little section, just a little tiny tease.
Okay. So we'll have to get the book to see what it is you're referring to. Like they did homework, math, English, that kind of thing. I'm sure that's
Yeah,
what
all
it's, yeah,
those
no.
things. Of
Yeah,
course, it
got
was
it.
just
Okay,
homework.
cool. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're moving through the ages. Some of the things I'm thinking about are in terms of writing are getting at the inner thoughts of the character as the character ages, as the various characters age. What were some of the challenges of that for you, thinking about writing this at different time periods of the characters' lives?
Ooh,
Or
I
what was
think
a challenge?
what was a challenge? I know there were many. I mean, I think in terms of the writing craft, right, is the hardest part. And then, I mean, also, I am ADHD, so that's something that I talk about and want to talk about in terms of it being a challenge. Not a challenge, it's just it's another way of working, another way of thinking. And so, like many of us and many great teachers have taught us to to just write. And eventually the beginning will pop out and the end will pop out and the middle will pop out and the age will come out. Like you just write and write and write. And then eventually things start to make sense. But when you are ADHD, that's really hard because then you have 500 pages, which that was the biggest challenge in terms of age and like, what ages do I really need to keep here? And how much of the little soul do we need? How much of the teenage soul do we need? And what is going to really contribute to her story and the story of folks in South Texas altogether, right? And because I wanted to make sure that I was also really clear about that a lot of things do happen in your 20s and 30s, and there's so much more development that happens in our queer bodies. And so I wanted to really capture that portion. So that was a challenge, but also a blessing. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And you have another section or so too?
Yes. Yeah.
Or
And
more
in this
sections?
next section, yeah, I have two more sections. In this next section, just shortly after, I mean, other things happened. That wonderful evening happened. The next morning happens. They go to school. All that happens. And then she gets caught. And so what ends up happening, I just saw someone's head go like this. I love it. And then she gets caught. And so this is like definitely a turning point. And at this point, she's running. So her father has a temper. He is also, there's a lot going on in why he is who he is. He did work at the Hayes Salmons factory, so that's a little bit of a hint to who we're dealing with. And Hayes Salmons was the factory that I referred to earlier, that was emitting the 7 deadliest chemicals out into the air of Mission. So her dad has a lot going on, and at this point, he is livid that his daughter is queer, and he has just decided that it's not going to be like this, and that he's not going to accept it. And so at this point, she's missing, and mom is afraid. and worried and doesn't know what to do. But there is someone who does know where she is, and that is her sister, Lucia, who I also spoke about earlier. Um, and so in this scene, we have Lucia and Flora, Sol's mom. And let me open that up right now. That's 152. Doña Flora Gaviota-Alaniz was in the kitchen when Lucy finally came out of her bedroom to check on her. The woman's face, jagged and squeezed together in every corner, had aged 20 years in the last 5 hours. She was glued to the bottom of a petite wooden chair at the head of her family dinner table. Looking through the checkered, crank-operated front windows of the house, the orange rotary phone slept in front of Flora, attached to a wire-thin matching orange cord that stretched across the living room, over the lime green and red embroidered couch, behind the brass floor lamp, and to the far back wall as long as the cord could reach. Lucia slid across the wood floor of in her chanclas, pretending she was worried and sad, passing her mom with her head down so Flora couldn't see the lie in her eyes. Lucia couldn't lie about anything, ever. She was an open book. She got a look at her mommy's hand, pale at the fingertips, where it squeezed the top of the phone. "Mommy, your hands." Lucy placed her hand over her mommy's. "They're frozen. Move them around or something." Flora wordlessly tilted her chin down into the hollow above her breasts, frowning a little and covering her eyes behind her thick blanket of black lashes. The windows in the living room were cranked open, welcoming the hot, sour, wet wind that weighed down their lonely evening street. Flora didn't know that Sol's shivering body was close by in the same grocery freezer she had stocked with fresh dairy and meat just days before. An old brown clunker truck creaked by, and Flora looked out of the window. Her ankles were swollen from not moving, and her feet were tucked under her chair, propped up on her stinging toes. "You're gonna have to go to bed at some point, Mommy." Flora huffed through barely parted lips. She had no plan on moving. "Fine, I'm going to bed, Mommy. Sol will be fine. I know it." Flora said nothing. "For real, Mommy, don't worry. She's a big girl." "Please, Mija, don't tell me not to worry about my children until you've raised your own. Even then." "I know. And don't I know me? It's not that I don't trust your sister. I don't trust those bozos out there." "I understand you're worried about Sol, Mommy. Disculpe. I'm sorry. I am too. It's not that I don't trust her, mija. I know. You just don't trust those bozos out there." "You want to know the truth? I don't trust your father. I overheard him telling El Feo Chuy that he wanted to get rid of that curse, de una vez por todas. I'm afraid he's going to kill your sister." And that's that section. I'll stop there.
Wow, yeah, intense. I'm hearing really strong dialogue, and it's really pulling me in to the story. We can chat a little bit more about dialogue and such. Do you want to go ahead and go with the next section? Let's go
Absolutely.
with the flow there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in this last section that I will read you today, we have two short sections that I'm going to read, and I'm going to read them together, but I'll take a little break in between. So what happens now is Sol has run off. She's gone. She left, and she ends up going to San Antonio. She finds a life in San Antonio with her queer family, and I'm going to give you a glimpse of that life, just like a couple pages of that, just a little beautiful photo of what she's doing on a daily. And then I'm going to take a little breath, and then we're going to go into the next section where this is 20 years later, and she's called back home to mission. And then there's all these other things that happen in between and after. So I will start with a little glimpse into her life, and then her being called back will be the next section I read at the end. Okay. A high-pitched bell jingled as Miss Pauletta Love walked into the salon. Behind her, the blue Sunday morning cascaded down to earth like a curtain of sky hanging from the windows. Solitaria, standing at the back door, placed her fingertips to her lips and blew a kiss over to her. Morning, Polly. How are you doing today? Miss Love waved back without looking up. Today's my day. Today you call me Miss Pauletta Love. All day, honey. The pair continued calling out to each other without making eye contact, busily enthralled in their own morning rhythms. Every day is your day, Miss Pauletta Love, honey, Sol said. Miss Love looked at herself in the mirror and tucked away the loose edges of pastel pink chiffon poking out around her crown of rollers. She's tight and tucked, honey. Oh, I bet you are, Ginger. Ginger, I'm appalled. Pauletta threw her head back and laughed. I'm going for orange creamsicle, mamas, you know. Just wait till you see me all teased up and sprayed. Solitaria needed to do some more setup before her tios came down to open the salon, but her eyes were still adjusting. You're too far away for me to see the masterpiece, Miss Love, but the look certainly sounds good enough to eat. Oh, wouldn't you just love that, mamas? You're every lesbo's dream, Miss Love, every lesbo's dream. The two friends finally reached one another and leaned in for a quick kiss. Before continuing to prep for their days, Love was one of San Antonio's drag queen treasures and highly respected in the gay community. Her career in the club scene was longer than most of the jotes had been alive, but also because her death drops, dance numbers, and splits seemed effortless and had them gagged. When Miss Pauletta Love floated across the club floor, people whispered that she had wheels on her heels because her gown poured down and swept the ground like a cortina de lluvia strung from the clouds. She was a pageant queen with a sharp step and a relentless tongue, one of the best. So plugged in every individual styling station and flipped on each mirror of Hollywood lights, made to frame the reflection of the queens in their respective styling chairs. While Miss Pauletta exhaled and scoped out her surroundings to be sure she would be sitting comfortably before the gaggle of other gays arrived, Solitaria inspected the shop for cleanliness and organization. She spotted a loose press-on nail jammed in the space between the wall trim and the floor in her peripheral vision. Extra nails were hot commodities for the queens because any wrong flip of the wrist or swoop of their hair could fling a freshly applied, hand-painted, bedazzled nail across the stage. But Sol quickly forgot about its unfortunate demise when she caught the reflection of her annoying baby hairs sticking out of the top of her freshly pulled chongo. She wasn't anyone's baby anymore and wished her round face and fuzzy hair would flatten and chisel out a bit. Most people went to church or breakfast with their parents or abuelos on Sundays, but at the salon, they were for chosen familia, queens, drag children, and chisme. They beat their faces, teased their wigs, glammed out their nails, and sometimes even tailored or tightened parts of their gowns. Miss Pauletta Love pranced across the tight reception area in pink chanclas and gray skin-tight leggings rolled up to the knees. Sing my full name at the top of your lungs for the entire universe to hear until I win the crown. She dropped a pink box and paper cup on top of the scheduled book as she passed the white lacquer check-in station. Perfume and sugar instantly blew through the entire salon. The scent made its way to Solitaria, forcing the sleepy girl to smile as she observed Miss Pauletta Love flash imaginary snapshots of herself in each mirror she passed on the way to Fito's chair. She admired the dedication of the queens, especially Miss Pauletta Love. She didn't know how one single human being could be so strong, so confident, so daring, and so beautiful, all while taking shit from jerks all day long. At 8 a.m., right out of bed and out of drag, Miss Love glowed like the queen she was, or perhaps it was the performance glitter from the night still contoured on her high cheekbones. Her minuscule stubble caught the light too, elegant against the morning sun, so she appeared holographic. And that's a little moment into her life. She has
Oh,
now found herself into a salon. Her queer family from the Valley many of them have moved to San Antonio, which for me also was like it was a shoo-in to include that in the story because it's really common that people leave the Valley and come to San Antonio. It's like San Antonio is kind of like the New York of the Valley sometimes, and we do that to stay close to family, but not too close, you know? And so I had to put that there. I mean, my best friends in San Antonio are from the Valley, and my family, you know. And so that's a little piece there. And then that was like her earlier years at the salon when she's starting to learn and starting to get to know everyone that her tios are working with. There's so many beautiful characters there, so many beautiful drag queens. And I was also very conscious about including like some half names of queens that have performed here in San Antonio. So Pauletta is a real queen, but I kind of changed her up. She's really Pauletta. I mean, she's Pauletta Lay was her name. And then I include like little cameos of Erica Andrews and Shady Lady and other queens in San Antonio that really made an impact on community and became queer family for many people. And so in this very last section is when she's called back home. And so I'm gonna get to those right here. And I won't tell you why she's called back home, but you'll find out. All right. Okay, give me 1 second. Where the breeze crossed the shade of the palmas, Sol parked her car, so it wouldn't heat up too fast. She cracked the windows and opened her door immediately after powering off the ignition. The mossy smell of the San Antonio River rose in her nose, mixing with the pungent stench of ammonia from the salon. As she pulled out her silver accordion window shade, she talked back to Dormiona through the rearview mirror. Vámonos, Dormiona. Her bird was walking in tiny circles at the bottom of her cage without making a sound. Vamos a despedirnos de sus tíos. The bird kept circling. You're going to get dizzy, Dormiona. Stop walking in circles. She laughed at her bird, then at herself for talking to a bird as if she actually understood words. She stepped out of the car, opened the back door, and looked down into the cage. Dormiona looked up at her, like any loyal daughter would. The bird's face had no expression, but Sol could see confusion in the way her fist-sized feathery body fidgeted. Sol winked at her, kissed the top of her cage, grabbed the handle, and pulled the wire box out of the car and onto the sidewalk. We're going south, mija, but I'm going to drive you, so you don't have to worry. Bye-bye, bye-bye, Dormiona squawked. Yes, we are going bye-bye. We can even listen to your favorite songs. Sol smiled and reached over to the back window of the truck cab to slide it open for extra airflow. She looked down at Dormiona through the chipped baby blue bird cage and stuck her pointy finger inside, wagging it from side to side, an inch in front of the bird's hooked beak. You have to behave in Tio's salon, Dormiona. Sol's anxiety heightened at the sight of Teofito's face through the wraparound window. He was weaving up a braided updo on a rubia queen whose Sol couldn't recognize through the reflection of eastern sunlight. The salon was dressed in a barbershop costume, but past the tinted glass doors and high gloss and white and black checkered floors spread white upholstery, shiny chrome, and vanity bulbs framed each mirror. The clientele were meant to feel like runway stars. Teofito and Tio Remedios decorated their San Antonio location the same way the Pulga location was fashioned. Contemporary meets 80s pop, meets Liza Minnelli's sequin gown, meets Diana Warwick's crystal glam. And I'm going to stop there. And that's it. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to tell you what
Wow.
happens when she goes
Yes. I
home.
want you to, but I don't want you to. Don't give it away. It's fabulous. Thank you. Beautiful writing. Such a strong voice and the characters are really compelling. I really appreciate the arc of the kind of it's almost like a trailer that we got so far, right? To pull us in to the story. So I'm really looking forward to this book. I wanted to ask you a question, and then we'll open it up for dialogue. I see some questions already popping up. I'm curious about too. One thing I'm thinking about is as you've moved to all the different genres, and you still continue to work in various genres, including poetry. You're finishing a graphic memoir. You are a visual artist, a fabulous painter, sculptor. What has it been like for you to work in fiction, to work in a novel? You've done short fiction, to work on a novel. What was that process like for you?
It was really, it's probably in some ways everything I needed because it was like I am extremely detailed in the way that I think. Um, and I think the challenge, the way that I see the world, I mean, I see
Mhm,
like little ants like walking up and down the wall. It's part of just who I am. I'm like very just
mhm,
looking, looking, looking. And so the challenge was getting it all out, but the freedom was getting it all out. Like being able to just like write and write and detail and detail and detail and also understand, because part of the writing process for me is not just, I'm not just writing for the output, I'm writing for what's happening, the understanding that I'm happening about the world while I'm writing. So part of writing the novel and writing long fiction was really an opportunity for me to just like dig deeper into where I'm from, who I am, what is this land, what is our language, how do we shift, how do we change, how do we create compromise and third alternatives in this world, right? In these communities that there are friction, right? There's friction with family, friction with friends. And so in writing the novel, for me as a queer body, as a trans body, and also um, as a, you know, nostalgic Catholic, no longer practicing, you know, all these things, being in South Texas, being in the Valley, the novel gave me a bigger canvas to really showcase the power and beauty and strength that is all of South Texas, the border, our community, our migrant community, our indigenous community, our queer and gay and drag community. I needed a space to like, I needed a stage, I needed the glitter, I needed the lights, I needed all of it. And so the novel gave me that, and I feel really excited about it. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Beautiful. All right. Well, let's open it up in dialogue. So Megan Solomon has an interesting question. Megan, would you be willing to come onto video or audio to ask the question you posted? If not,
Yeah,
I will just read. Oh yeah, please go.
good to see you both. Amazing,
Hey.
amazing to hear all of these beautiful snippets from the novel Anel. I'm so excited to read it and teach it in my Latina lesbian lit class.
Yay. Thank you.
Um, my question that I put in the chat was, is this the same Paloma from Empanada?
Well, I mean, maybe. I love to have her
Ooh,
as a cameo. Yeah, absolutely. It absolutely is. I mean, it is and it isn't,
her
right? So it's that
crossover.
say, yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, I gotta throw her in there because she's, you know, she's a constant for me. That name came up for me so early on when I was like first starting to write, like even in my teenage years. And so when I put it in Empanada and then I was writing this novel, I'm like, I have to bring her. She's got to be like everywhere for me. And Paloma in many ways is, you know, just the paloma herself, like the dove, the wings, the flight, and the meaning of a paloma. So yeah, yes. So yes and no, Megan. Thank you for that question.
Great question.
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments or questions? Anybody want to jump in? I know there's some great ones, and if people don't want to speak up here, we're happy to Cloud and Floating, and I can kind of pick a question, or I can pick one. But if there's anybody who would like to chime in, either with a comment or question, please feel free to do so. I see all kinds of fabulous people in here.
Yeah. And as we're waiting, if you guys are thinking of questions, I also want to just say how I also want to take this moment and really recognize that today is also Transgender Day of Remembrance. If we can remember all those lives that have unfortunately been lost by anti-trans violence, and you know, continue to be love and good energy for all trans community around you. So just putting that out there for everybody. It's a really, really special day. So I'm happy in a way that this landed on this day, because this book really highlights so many trans characters that you'll meet as you continue to read.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. I really appreciate how you um, honor some real life characters from the different communities that you've moved through. And of course, the characters might be kind of inspired by them, and it's not necessarily them, right? It's fiction. These are fictionalized stories, but there's definitely some sparks and sequins from various people that you've moved through
Yeah.
community with, and it's a beautiful way to honor them by including them
Yeah.
in the story. So I see some questions here popping up. Do you have a specific writing routine?
A specific writing routine. I mean, I think the constants have been coffee, um, very early morning, so preferably to get started when it's still dark. And that's because nobody can text or call. And I mean, that's a practical reason, but the real magical reason is there's something beautiful about just the crisp night. And you don't, and just the aloneness, the solitude that you can get. So part of my major process, the two must-haves are wake up before the sun comes out, start drinking coffee, do a little meditation. And I mean that those are some major ones. I do light some copal, or I do incense, or many different strategies. I also play the flute to center me, to ground me, different strategies for my ADHD as well. And so there are different little tools that I have for my writing process. I also keep a list on the side to keep me organized. So yeah, lots of different things.
Great, great. There's a
Thank-
question here about the superpower of ADHD. How long did this book come together? And do you want to say any more about the kind of neurospiciness and how
Yeah,
that's part of your journey?
neurospiciness. Absolutely. It's definitely my journey. I was questioned a few years ago by a friend of mine, who asked me how gentle, she said, "How gentle are you being with your disability?" She asked me, and I couldn't
Mhm.
answer that question,
Mm,
because I started to cry, and I realized
mhm,
that I hadn't been gentle with myself. And so
mm,
writing this book was an incredible act of gentleness with myself, to say
mhm,
it's okay if you've been writing this book for 10 years, it's
mhm.
okay if you have no idea what to do today. It's okay if you're totally lost and you just have to call Jackie and be like, Jackie, I'm never writing again, which I've done many times, right,
And
Jackie?
then we have to go right immediately.
Yeah, then we
Yeah.
go write immediately. Then we're like, oh, we better set up a writing date. Um, so the superpower of ADHD and neurospiciness, though, is that it doesn't end. Like the thoughts keep
Mhm,
coming, the thoughts keep coming, the thoughts keep coming, and that's exciting. And that's why
mhm,
sometimes when people are like, "Sit down, stop working, right? You do so much." I'm like, I love it.
mhm.
It is my superpower, and so that's it.
Well, you said something earlier too about being able to put a lot of details here. It's interesting to think about the way, like in poetry, sometimes we're depending on what we're working on, or we might be kind of working for kind of distilling or kind of conciseness sometimes, right? Or in the short fiction, we're kind of thinking about trying to kind of whittle it down, right? And then there's only so you can do amazing things, and it can be very layered when you're doing painting and sculptures, but then there's the product, and then it kind of and people's interaction with it, but there it is, right? I feel like there's something that sounds to me the way you're talking about it that's been very kind of freeing about
Yeah.
being able to write long fiction. Is that am I reading you right?
You absolutely
Yeah.
are. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, like everything, there are moments where I'm like, oh my God, I'm trapped. But,
Mhm.
and no, definitely freeing. I really feel like I feel so happy and lucky to have
Mhm.
this much space, and then,
Mhm.
and friends and colleagues, like someone said, other very important parts of this process is not just me writing a book. I mean,
Mhm.
Jo Reyes Boytel, who's on here, she read this
Mhm.
version of this novel 5 years ago, maybe.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
read a version of this, other folks,
Mhm.
other friends, other community that I'm like, could you please just like, what am I doing here? That
Mhm.
has helped so much. So part of the superpower of being ADHD is that also I have to know and be conscious that I can't do this by myself. And I have to be
Mhm.
gentle and say, hey, somebody help me. I'll give you a painting. I'll give you some credit for a painting. We'll do a trade, or I'll give you cash if I have a grant, right? We figure out how to make that
Working in
work.
community, right?
Yeah,
Right?
working in
And yeah.
community.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've got
Can you
a
guys hear
question here
me?
from a oh, go ahead,
Can
please.
you hear me? I don't know if you can see me, but I just wanted to say two things. The first thing is that Anel, when you read, it's so soft.
Mm,
And it was like looking at a movie as you went on. And I liked the sound of your voice. I noticed that at Lemon Girls.
thank you.
And so I really like that part. It's just so you reading and I'm calm and I'm going along. I really enjoyed that. The other thing is the question, and I guess because I'm a mom,
Mm,
she leaves and she's with her queer family, but you I don't know if you didn't say it, if it comes later or I missed it. The mom, how does the mom react? I know how the father reacted, but how does the mom react? And then she's gone for a long time now.
yeah.
How is his mom dealing with that? I don't know if that's included. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tell you because I mean, but
It's
go
there
there.
though? Okay,
But
I'll
it's
Read the
read.
there.
book.
Yeah. It's
It is
definitely
addressed.
it's definitely
Dun,
addressed.
dun, dun,
In
dun.
fact,
Next season.
exactly. Yeah. And what's really interesting though, because you asked me about the mom, I wrote this book differently the first time, and it was, and I think the characters were kind of swapped, the mom and the dad's energy, and I had to rewrite the whole novel and switch it again, and I changed their character. So, but you'll see, I mean, the mom absolutely gets her place and gets her
Okay,
time.
and I'm sorry I got here a little bit late. So which book are we speaking of?
Curtains of Rain comes out next year by Jaded
Oh,
Ibis Press. So
okay.
the novel next year,
Great.
Okay.
Curtains of Rain.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Antonia.
Thank
We
you.
have a hand up from Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa.
Hey, from
Hey,
Colorado. Hi,
hi, friend.
Anel. Me and Ever
Hi.
here. We're
Hi,
supporting. We're
Emma.
so proud of you.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. And we can't wait to buy the book. I just wanted to give
Yay.
a special shout out and say for sure, superpower of ADHD and ADD. And
Yeah.
in the spaces that we work, particularly community helps us definitely jump around the different projects and so much work to do. But that self-care and queer fam totally being there for that support and to lean on each other, and particularly, yes, with Trans Remembrance Day and us being here in Colorado Springs 2 years ago, yesterday was Club Q. And so, we had to mark ourselves safe. It's not something we were anticipating coming from helping with the Uvalde families, another one. But I definitely appreciate you putting in there how important the queer family is. And that's why we love coming back home and getting to visit with y'all. So we're here supporting and we're so proud of you. And we're definitely going to buy the
Yeah.
book.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Yeah.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you. We have someone who asked for advice for a new writer.
Advice for a new writer. I mean, the best teachers told me just start writing, right? And it's the truth. Write anything. I have a journal right here. I'll show you. Like some of the words are legible. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna let you read it, but then there are some words that, and I'll show you an example, that are not legible at all. See that? There's some advice. Write when you don't even know what you're writing, except for what's here,
Yeah.
and write what you know what you're writing, right? Just write. If you get stuck, just write the same word 100 times. No writing is wrong. There will always be gems in there, and just start writing. It's the exercise of moving the pen. The exercise. And someone asked me a private message, what would be the biggest thing in this book that you are wanting your readers to take in? And I want to say, in connection with what we are seeing here, there are a lot of y'all in here that are my queer family, that I consider my queer family, that I couldn't be doing this without you. Some of you I've known for 30 years, and some of you I've known for 3 months. That's a true fact. And you are all my queer family. So what I want people to see in this book is how that works, how queer family works, how we are in this, especially at this time in Texas and on the border. We are queer family, period. If you feel like you're alone in a room, you're not. You have queer family. And so the most important thing about this book is how that is shaped, how that is also culturally driven, how that is part of who we are, and how we're making new ways. And so I want to share that.
Thank you. That's important and amazing. And I love that we'll go on this queer family journey in this book. Let's see, any other questions or comments I'm looking for? If not, I'm happy to have you think
Anel,
about. Oh, please go ahead.
hi. Sorry, Jackie.
Lily, please.
Hi, Lily.
Hey, and on that note, I'm curious about the name of the main character, Solitaria,
Yeah.
because it's kind of
Well,
like the name Soledad. It's
mhm,
kind of a sad name,
yeah.
but
So
I guess Sol, when you shorten it to Sol, it's a little more hopeful.
yeah. And that's why I chose the name actually. I mean, you pinned it. I like the transition of how her early name, well, there's another story about her name and how it comes about, Solitaria. But then as it's shortened and you feel, I mean, she has changed. So it changes to Sol in the middle, like in the book, as she changes her character, as her being, her whole self and her identity changes. Yeah. And so I wanted it to kind of, I wanted that Sol is really her main name throughout the book. Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's
great to
good
hear you
question.
read the snippets. Thank you.
Thank you. And great question. Great question. Thank you.
Have you painted or done visual art about the book along the way? Like have things come out in other forms as you're thinking about
Yeah.
the story?
Definitely. I mean, because it's called, I mean, originally I was like, Cortinas de Lluvia. And that's because Erika and I were driving to the valley and there was a Cortina de Lluvia like across the sky, like we've seen before, which is like those stripes, those curtains of rain, right? And she was like, look, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. And at that moment, I named the novel Cortinas de Lluvia, which then turned into Curtains of Rain, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, for me, oh my God, I forgot the original question. What was it? What was the original question? Why the name?
Somebody is just posted. Can you talk about naming the book? So go with that.
Oh, so I like lost it. See, ADHD. The name of the book. So it started with that, and then after that, oh, the artwork. Everything has been about like rain and you know and like sky and water. So a lot of my paintings have been like deeply engulfed, like those imagery of rain in the valley, and all of my work now has been so is reflective of the imagery that you see here. I mean, you can see it on my website, for sure. But yeah, definitely been affected. I definitely felt like they influenced each other for sure. And then it was really beautiful to discover that I was able to compare the gowns of the drag queens, to the curtains of rain, and that symbolism of how the queens were our protection, right? And part of our family, like those curtains, like that rain, like that healing, like that
Oh,
energy
that's
from
a
the sky.
beautiful image.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
The
it all
swish
like,
of the dress and the
yeah,
movement
the
being
movement
like
coming down.
protection. Yeah, that's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see. The other comments or questions? I know we're almost out of time there. We have a reminder in the chat from Cloud. Thank you, Cloud, to please click on the survey link for Gemini Inc. It really
yeah.
helps Gemini Inc. out if you fill out their survey to help document how many people were here, what people thought, so that they can get funding for more programming like this. So please take a second to click on that link.
Awesome.
Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
please.
Go
And also,
ahead.
I want to just
Mhm.
share that so this novel comes out next year, and also
Mhm.
a translation of Empanada will be coming out next year. Still waiting on the exact publisher. We don't have a contract yet, but the translation of Empanada is coming out next year. Painted Red, my graphic memoir, I'm in process right now, so that will be coming out hopefully, I mean, sooner than later, maybe 2026 or so. And Curtains of Rain comes out hopefully by May of 2025. And so just please, you know, look out for my website, follow, and everybody on here, you know, follow each other. There's so many great writers in here, like Carmen and Antonia and Cloud and
Amazing people in the room.
Liliana,
Everyone, just
Jackie,
yeah,
all of y'all.
great
I
group.
mean, Joe, Madi, yeah, a bunch of y'all. Brenda, Jane, Michelle. Oh my God, there's so many people. I'm now looking at y'all's names. Sorry, I didn't even know who was here until right now. Awesome.
Well, thank you all
Awesome. Well,
so much
Mhm.
for it was first of all, Anel, I think this is the first time I've heard you read, so that was really amazing. And again, thank you all for joining us to listen to Anel's you know, the excerpts of the novel. I think we're all gonna immediately buy it as soon as it comes out. So thank you so much. And again, Jackie, thank you for moderating a great discussion. And I hope you all have a great evening and just keep an eye out for what we have going at Gemini Inc. And again, thank you all so much. Have a good evening.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Love you, Tia.
Anel, that was great. You're a good reader.